Arsenal are said to be in advanced stages of negotiations with Manchester City to agree the fee of around 50 million euros for Gabriel Jesus. How good a player could this be for Arsenal Football Club? How significant a deal? A new striker is needed, maybe more than one. But this is a player with Premier League pedigree, Champions League pedigree, a winning mentality, and an elder statesman, somebody with experience and age on his side to really help these young gunners progress and move forward. Smash the like button, subscribe to the Football Terrace now. I want your comments below as well. Rate this signing on a scale of 1 to 10 if Arsenal can pull this off early in the transfer window. Do you know what, people? Let's do this. There's lots of reports out there at this moment in time about Gabriel Jesus, where he's going to go. But what do we know? The agent himself confirmed that there have been talks with Arsenal over a move from Manchester City. That was just a few short days ago that this was done, this was dusted, and this was confirmed. The Arsenal have got into these negotiations and they are trying to move this deal forward. It was around the 22nd of April, so just sort of 10 to 20 days ago that this news started to more than 10 days ago, to be fair, about 20 plus days ago, sorry, that this news really started to pick up pace and it started to progress. And talks of the deal being almost done, dusted, and agreed were being thrown about social media. Now, it's very, very important to remember that stereotypically with these transfers, the deal gets agreed with players before it gets a deal, before the deals get agreed between the football clubs. We saw a very famous example of this with Arsenal, whereby they were in a situation with Vlahovic where they'd pretty much it read like they'd come to an agreement, or the official bid they would make would be accepted by Fiorentina. But of course, they didn't get to an agreement with Vlahovic and he went on to join Juve. Clubs typically like to get a deal done with a football club first and then move on to trying to convince the player. When the player agrees, they tried to convince the player first. Let me restart that again. Once it's agreed with the player, they move on to the football club to try and get a deal done in that regard. And then they go back and make the official bid. This is one, to save themselves time. If they can't convince the player, there's no point convincing the club to a large degree. And it also helps from a PR and a public opinion point of view, because if you never make an official approach, if you never have official negotiations, if you never make an official bid, you therefore can't be turned down. And clubs will often look to protect themselves massively in these circumstances. But in the past 12 to 24 hours, what we have seen is a huge update here. First one saying that Arsenal have stepped up their Gabriel Jesus chase and are close to an agreement with a fee with Manchester City. This was followed up by Goal, who have stated essentially the same thing, but they've said they've offered around 50 million euros and the negotiations are at an advanced stage. These are two very much pieces of the same news. You can argue one is saying that they're nearly at an agreement. The other is kind of talking about advanced negotiations in terms of with Manchester City for a fee of around 50 million euros being the initial offer. Now, it could rise, it could fall, depending on the negotiations. In terms of these things are always a sort of a ballpark figure that the media are given. But it does appear that Arsenal was serious about this move. But of course, it will always get played down. The only time you're going to see an Arsenal tier one really come out and go for this hell for leather and really give a big update and say the words advanced, say the words close, is when it's practically done. I wouldn't. The way I look at the tier ones now, tier ones know their stuff. They know the clubs. They put things out. They very rarely at the moment get involved in transfer talks at a very early stage. And if they do, the general tone will be there is interest, or there are talks, or there has been an approach, but nothing advanced yet. Long way to go. It could be difficult. That's kind of the rhetoric and the wording that is used around it. Again, I think that's very much protecting all parties involved. You go back to last summer as an example. Inter Milan, for the entirety of the summer, said Lukaku's not for sale until the right offer was made. And then suddenly Lukaku was for sale. But yeah, Inter had told everybody, like point blank, all summer, we are not selling him. So expect that from the tier ones when it comes to these stories. In my opinion, that isn't to discredit them. They know what they're talking about, but they will go later, generally speaking, later on down the line, unless it is exclusive news to them. But onto the player himself. How good a player is he? Well, he's absolutely sensational. He'll be, and when I say that he's absolutely sensational, I mean he is absolutely sensational for Arsenal. He's a finisher. He's a good number 9. Very good number 9, in fact. I think what we're looking at with Gabriel Jesus, and I was kind of watching him a lot more closely in recent games than I have done in the past. And I think what he suffered with at Manchester City is what I've seen. I've seen great players or very good players at Manchester United suffer with this in our pomp and in our heyday. And the reason that I compare it to Man United is because I'm more familiar with them as a club. We've had players who have been part of our team that have not been left behind, but when you win the treble, you know, everybody's speaking about Scholes and Keane and look what Beckham achieved. And wow, Dwight York, what a signing he was. Yap Stam, what a signing he was. Look what a team. And people kind of forget about Andy Cole. And Andy Cole's a great example here of a Premier League legendary striker who's always kind of overlooked in particular conversations because even when he was at Man United, it was only for a few years in the 90s where he was the star guy. You, of course, had Cantona, you had Sheringham that came in, Dwight York that came in. And for whatever reason, these players were like propelled above him. But Andy Cole was one of the most prolific and deadliest strikers in the history of the Premier League. And there's always this notion that went around saying that he needs 4 chances to score one. We now know because statistical data comes out that even Lionel Messi's conversion rate was about 16%. So Andy Cole was very much a kind of, I would say an underappreciated player. And I look at Gabriel Jesus in very much the same light. Gabriel Jesus, for me, he's just not the star of Man City's team, but he's a very, very good footballer. They play a system where players get rotated a lot. They have an abundance of quality from top to bottom. So he never really gets the run of games. And there's only a handful of City players, you know, their main centre-back, you know, a fullback or two, the goalkeeper, KDB, who almost without fail, you know, if fit, they're going to start a game, and especially if that game is important. The rest of the team, it really is kind of up in the air. You never quite know what Pep Guardiola is going to do. And I think that's kind of hindered Gabriel Jesus in his time so far at Man City. Although his goal-scoring ratio is still very, very good. He has still been influential, still scored clutch goals. And I just get this feeling that if he goes to a club, and Arsenal could be that team, where he's appreciated, where he is given not a guarantee of first-team football, because you, of course, want there to be the element of jeopardy. You don't want mediocrity. You want people to be in the team based on merit as opposed to just their name or their contracts. And I'm sure Arsenal are going to do that. But I think if you put him in a team that nurtures him well, coaches him well, but makes him the focal point of an attack, you've got an individual that really could shine through. He could really shine through and become a star striker of the Premier League, as opposed to being a good player in a star team where the KDBs, the Bernardo Silvas, the Raheem Sterlings, the Haalands who are on their way in, who are the superstars. And I'm not suggesting here that football players are arrogant and shouldn't feel this way, but there is a want and a desire at times from players to become the key part. They want to be the crowning jewel, especially in strikers, especially number 9s, because for years, and it still stands this way when they're top class, number 9s and attackers always generally get more love, more support, more acclaim than players in any other position on the pitch. If you think about all the players that get listed as GOATs, potential GOATs, you've got some defenders that go into that category, the Maldinis, the Sir Bobby Moores. You've got some midfielders that go into that category, your Paul Scholeses, your Xavis, Iniestas, Zidanes. But the vast majority are attack-minded players, number 9s, inside forwards, marauding wingers, the exciting players, the people that put the ball in the back of the net. And I just think this is something that Arsenal have harnessed. And it feels like, and I'm putting this out there now, it feels like if Arsenal are negotiating now with Man City, that the deal with the player is done. And I know that's what was reported. If you go back to the 21st, 22nd, 23rd of April, it was all about the player is very happy to join. The fact now it's being reported, and quite strongly reported, that Arsenal are submitting bids. Whether it be official or unofficial, you know, here on the Terrace, we don't care. It's always official. It's always official. It's always real. Tells me there is a massive chance that this could happen. And you know what we're like, or I'm like personally, and what the Terrace is about. I'm not going to sit here and be overly salty. I've seen the last 24 hours Arsenal fans get salty over Man United's links to Frankie de Jong. It's not the right signing. It's too big a player. You know, it's too much this, too much that. I'm not going to follow suit. I'm not going to do tit for tat, and I'm going to say what I think. I think Gabriel Jesus is a very good player, but he could be a sensational piece of business for Arsenal. Horses for courses, square pegs to square holes, a striker that can hold the ball up, that can bring others into play, who does have an eye for a goal, but just needs the love and the confidence put in him to play regularly, to start 30, 32, 35 Premier League games in a season, to be the main man, the leading light for a side. Now, I want your thoughts and I want your feelings on this deal. Gooners, let me know now in the comments section below. Gabriel Jesus, you happy, sad, indifferent? What more do you want in your squad as well? And I always ask these questions at the end to see how many of you have stayed to the end. Until next time, people, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.